Hello everybody, I'm Maddire Memory Maker and today I'm going to be telling you guys why I left Etsy. I'm going to go over the 5 main reasons which made me want to leave Etsy and start my own website. Let's get into that. If you have never seen my channel before, I specialize in making handmade junk journals and I also do oil paintings on my YouTube channel. So if you would like to have a look at any of those, I encourage you guys to go and check that out. Now this is going to be completely my experience and very transparent with you guys. If you're an Etsy seller, you may have a different experience, but this is just the things that really bothered me as a seller. So I wanted to share that with you just to give you a little bit more context on my small business. So, I started my small business in 2023. However, I've had an Etsy shop, I think, since 2022. I started it pretty much after my daughter was born because that was something that I wanted to do as a bit of a stay-at-home mum. Still doing that now. My small business is taking its sweet time, but anything worth it definitely takes that time. So I can make another video explaining a little bit more of my journey, which I definitely think I will do. But for this one, let's just go straight into number 1, SEO. Now, this one is a little bit of an interesting one, and it's probably one of the main reasons. Usually you don't start with the exact main reason as to why you left, but I thought, you know what, let's just be completely to the point. Let's do that. So the search engine optimization. For Etsy, you can add on your listings a title and then a description and a whole bunch of tags to help push your product up there, especially when people are looking for very specific things. Now, there is so much out there in terms of search engine optimization. And there's also a lot of scammers, a lot of people that will message you and be like, oh my god, your shop is an SEO, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Pay me some money and I'll make your shop like the best thing in the whole wide world. Well, that is not only very common on Etsy, scammers and messages and things like that, which really annoyed me as a seller because you get a notification, you'd be like, oh my god, someone wants to ask me a question about my small business, oh my gosh. And then you find out it's just like a bot. And then you're just like, oh my god. And they keep harassing you as well, especially if you don't respond. So yeah, that's not fun, but it's just a given. It is a marketplace. People are allowed to message you. It's not necessarily a fault of Etsy. However, there's just so many scammers on there, which is just so annoying. Anyway, so with SEO, I'm not an expert, okay? But basically, you want to be putting into your title and your description exactly what the product is that you're selling and keywords, things that are gonna stand out when someone is searching for something. So if I'm like, say, an Alice in Wonderland fan, you're gonna wanna have lots of different Alice in Wonderland themed keywords in your listing so that way it's then visible to whoever the hell is trying to look for something Alice in Wonderland themed. Now with Etsy, however, it is a very big marketplace, and I'm going to get onto that in a second. That is one of my other points. But when you are searching for things, because there are so many other small businesses and other people posting, one thing that really bothers me is the fact that your products do not show up under what they are because so many other people can put the exact same words in as you with unrelated products. So for an example, for junk journals specifically, because that is what I have experience in, junk journals are also used as a very big keyword for people that sell DIY, digi-kits, printables, a whole bunch of ephemera-based junk journal items, not actual junk journals. So what they do is they put in, you know, digi-kit, blah, 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 junk journal, this and that and that. So that's what actually appears on the search engine. When you type in handmade junk journals, you get flooded with a whole bunch of digi-kits and DIY stuff, not actual junk journals that are ready to go for sale, which really irritated me because it just isn't fair, especially if you're somebody that is selling a finished product. If someone types in a junk journal, I want to buy a junk journal, junk journals should appear. Now, let's actually just have a look at this. So I left Etsy about a year ago. or maybe, I don't know, 5-6 months ago probably. Let's have a look at it now. Now, if I go onto my shop, okay, so this is my banner, this is my shop. Oops, hang on, I've gone too far ahead. Okay, so this is my banner, this is my shop. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. So if we go into the search engine up the top here and type in junk journal, let's do that. Okay. So this is what comes up. I am seeing a few junk journals actually, which isn't too bad. It's a lot better than what it was. Yes, there's a few here. But as you can also see, there's a lot of bundles, there's a lot of templates, there's a lot of ephemera. My products do not show up on this, okay? So when someone's looking for my shop, they're not going to be able to find it unless they know my exact name, and that's just not worth it for me. Etsy isn't doing its job at getting people to my shop when it comes to this. Let's try another one. So handmade junk journal. Okay. Alright, this one is a lot better. There we go. Okay, we do have some junk journals. I'm telling you guys, they've made improvements. I was not able to find hardly any junk journals when I was doing this for my shop. I had over 50 products in my store, and my journals like literally would rarely show up unless I typed in the exact name that my journal was called. Even though I had junk journal and things in. This is actually really good. I'm impressed. I'm glad that Etsy has got more junk journals on there for people because it is so freaking frustrating. But you also do have a lot of ephemera. You still have a lot of things. To me, that should be a separate thing. If you're typing in like DIY junk journal, or if you're typing in ephemera, or if you're typing in, you know, printables, you should get printables. If you're typing in junk journals and handmade junk journals specifically, you should be getting handmade junk journals. And that is a flaw that Etsy just has because it is such a saturated marketplace, but we will get on to that one. Okay, but that for me, that was a killer. I was so sick and tired of it. Let's move on. Okay. Number 2. Prioritizing new accounts. Now, this is another issue that I really had with Etsy, and it bothered me. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty certain this is how it works. So when you sign up for Etsy, your first time, you're setting up your store, for whatever reason, you can get a lot of views, I think Etsy naturally, to keep you on Etsy, gives a whole bunch of visibility to your site for other clients and customers. I do believe that once you start an account, they do show it to other people because obviously they want you to be happy with Etsy and everything like that. I, on Etsy, have sold 5 journals, okay? And I had my shop open on there for at least 2 years, okay? All of my 5 journal sales happened within the first few months of me opening my Etsy store. From then on out, crickets. I got nothing, which really bothered me because I was working so hard. I was looking up all the different things and ways to get Etsy to bump you up. Apparently, you need at least 20 listings on Etsy in order to be considered like a proper, you know, kind of shop that's worth people looking at, sort of thing. I watched a lot of videos on it. I really did look into it. I tried to optimize my SEO. I did all the keywords, all the tags, everything like that. And still, I was not getting any sales, no revenue, only expenses from having my Etsy store. So for me, that really bothered me. And I know this for a fact because people who have Etsy accounts or start a new Etsy account, they have it's very similar experience. If you have an Etsy shop, I would love to know what your experience has been. It will be different for everybody, but majority of the people that I have known personally, they've had the same thing happen. They start their store, they get a whole bunch of traffic in, maybe make a few sales, and then it just starts declining. And to me, that is not what you want, especially when you're paying fees in order to have your shop open, and listing fees that are monthly, and you have to pay those in order for you to get your site being seen. You do get penalized if you have any late payments and things like that. Another way that I tested this theory was I started posting very sparingly. So when I first started my shop, I was doing really, really good. I had my stuff on there. I was making a few sales, and then it just died down, right? And then I think I had a couple months where I wasn't really posting. Like, it was only the beginning of my store kind of thing. And I uploaded like one thing extra. This was before I realized I really need to add more products and do this and this and this. So what I did is I added a new listing. I did get people view that listing, and I did get people contact me about it. And I did manage to sell a journal, but the gap in between was quite a lot. I had to upload a new product over a long period of time in order for Etsy to be like, oh hey, she's like gonna post something, even though I still had products and no one going to my store. So this might sound like a little bit crazy, I don't even know, but I'm telling you, people that probably post more sparingly, I think the algorithm, I'm not sure how it works, kind of prioritizes that and will give you a little bit of a boost. But if you are working on there 24/7, you are uploading new products every single day or week, for me, I wasn't getting any visibility, and I was doing so much work, it just wasn't making sense. And I was paying so many fees because I had so many products. Like I said before, I had like 50 products in my store, and I had no traffic or sales. So that to me led me to believe that Etsy prioritizes new accounts or people that post very sparingly. That might be good for you if you are someone that isn't trying to pursue a small business like in all seriousness, and you just want to sell something here and there. I think it's great. You'll probably get visibility and things like that, but it kind of does punish full-time handmade creatives and small businesses from my experience. So let's move on to the next one, which is the lack of traffic. Now, I've touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to be referring to social media specifically. So Etsy is a marketplace, an online marketplace, and it generates its own traffic. So not only will they also, promote some of the products on their website, aka your shop maybe might be featured in an ad or something like that, which is a part of a benefit that Etsy does provide. For me, my Etsy views and my shop views declined over time. And it wasn't because my product wasn't good enough. It wasn't because of issues to do with my pricing and things like that you would think, because I was able to go onto Etsy and look at many other sellers that also make junk journals and see that they've had consistent sales, and they had more expensive products than I did, and they also had less quality products than I did. So what I was making wasn't the problem. For some reason, the algorithm and the lack of traffic to my store, however, was an issue. And I do put the blame on Etsy for not really putting out or prioritizing my products, especially considering I had so many on there and I was regularly interacting with Etsy as a platform. Due to that lack of traffic, obviously, as a small business owner, you try and advertise yourself. You create a YouTube channel, you create other social media platforms to promote your work. However, that really isn't something that you should want to have to do on a platform like Etsy that is supposed to generate its own traffic. It makes no sense. It's like, why would I do all this extra work promoting myself just to get people to go to my Etsy store, pay fees, and then, still not get the traffic that I deserve or the traffic that I need to sustain my small business. So that brings me on to the next one, which is fees. Now, Etsy has a listing fee of about 20 cents per listing. So every time you upload a product, you have to pay 20 cents, and it's calculated at a monthly rate. So every month you will have an Etsy bill that you have to pay, which isn't too bad if you're selling, right? The product editor that Etsy has is really good as well and super easy. So it's quite a good perk, and 20 cents, you can definitely work that into the prices of your handmade products. However, the 6% sale fee is a bit of a tricky one, and it is on the expensive side, especially if you are the one that is putting in all the work and effort to promote your own store, because Etsy isn't generating the traffic for you. for me, it just seemed like a waste of my money. Why am I paying somebody to have my products on their site and paying these listing fees, not getting any traffic, doing all this extra work, promoting myself on other platforms? I might as well have my own website and not pay those fees. So, you know, for me, I am very lucky. My husband is a bit of a developer. He is very, very good at web development and things like that. So he made me my website. My fees now are only transaction fees, which is 2% on every transaction. And that is really good. No listing fees, no monthly subscription. I am very fortunate to have a husband that can do that, and not everybody is that fortunate. There are other websites that you can do, like Squarespace, Shopify. A lot of people talk about those. I do think that they are worth it, especially because you will need a website of some sort. But if you can't afford them, like me, I couldn't afford Shopify. I think it's like $40 to $60 a month. And, you know, that to me, no, Etsy definitely was a more of a preferred choice because those fees are lower and it's a lot easier, but you do get blocked. You do get stuck a little bit when it comes to the traffic because it is such an oversaturated marketplace. When you have your own website, people are coming to your website because they want your product specifically. On Etsy, they're seeing everyone out there in the world on Etsy that has a similar product to you. So the competition is extremely high. The only downside of having your own website though is yes, you may have more fees, and yes, you will have to definitely self-promote yourself. It will not generate traffic on its own. You do have to do that. But if it's not working on Etsy and you're filming anyway to promote your shop, you might as well have your own website. So that was where I was at. The listing fees, the fees also for your store do make your product a lot more expensive, which for me was really difficult because junk journals specifically, they cost a lot of money to make. Paper and charms and laces, ephemera, all this stuff, even though to the everyday person it doesn't seem like much, it's extremely expensive materials. It takes a lot of time to make, and I don't make any money on the hours that I put into my journals. I just try and cover my expenses and maybe a little bit of, you know, profit, so that way I can still get shipping and all of that stuff done and everything like that. I'm not making exuberant amounts of profit because I'm not making a wage for my time. So for me, having to add a ridiculous amount of more money to my products because of that fee, and it just made it less obtainable to people. It made my products way too expensive on Etsy. I can sell them a lot cheaper on my website, and that also benefits my audience. Not everyone can spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a junk journal, but they are very expensive to make on that same token. So it really just comes down to the seller. And Etsy's fees, you know, you need to, in order to be sustainable, you need to account for those fees into your prices. Otherwise, it's just not worth having your small business. You're paying somebody else. You're not making enough money for yourself. So these are things you will have to think about. For me, I hated having to add extra money like that to cover those Etsy fees. And Etsy also doesn't apply, 6% to the sale price that you want. It's 6% to whatever price you put in, if that makes sense, which is, so if you were to say you were to put $200, it takes 6% from that. And then if you add, another $50, it's taking 6% from the whole amount, which it basically just makes the fees larger for you. The more expensive your product is, the more fees you're going to pay. That 6% starts to get pretty big. So, to accommodate for that and then still have a reasonable price, it's a really tricky one. There are things out there that can give you, there are lots of tools, definitely lots of tools for Etsy, but in terms of pricing, but yeah, the fee is quite large. Etsy is a marketplace. So this brings me to number 5, overcrowded. Etsy is very overcrowded. It's very highly saturated. You are like it's like finding a needle in a haystack when it comes to your shop. And unless you are selling really, really cheap products, like printables, if you're selling, drop shipping, kind of print on demand stuff, your business could do really well because A, you're not having to do that much work. You're literally creating a design, putting it on a t-shirt or something, selling it for a cheap amount of money. You don't even make the product, okay? So for people that do drop shipping and print on demand, yeah, Etsy's great for that. Because yes, it's oversaturated, but you will probably get sales because A, you're going to be cheap and you'll be able to compare your prices against competitors, and the profit really doesn't matter because you're going to be making a product regardless because you're not doing hardly any of the work. If you are a small business owner like me, however, and you put a lot of effort and time into your handmade products and they also cost you a lot of money to make, it's really devastating to be in such a crowded marketplace because there's a chance you won't get seen. You won't get any visibility. As I found, I put a solid 2 years of, effort into Etsy and I was getting 0 views. There'd be months where it would be like 1 person visited your store. And it made no sense because every single week I was uploading a new product, at least 1 new product. You would think that Etsy would be like, this seller is serious. They really want, to do their shop on Etsy. They really want to use this platform. Let's give them a boost because they're being such a hard worker. I don't know. You would think it would take care of its sellers in that regard, but at the end of the day, that's probably not their priority and they make a lot of money just from all the people that are on there as it is. That is why I left Etsy. I'm sorry if I rambled on so much. It's a lot of information. I'm being completely transparent with my, experience. I want to make another video, hopefully explaining the pros and cons to Etsy, because although I'm on here complaining about it, there are some really good perks that Etsy does have. And especially if you are just starting out, I do recommend Etsy. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world, but it needs a lot of work. There needs to be more improvements made to Etsy in order for it to be actually sustainable for people like me that are a small business with regular products and, trying to actually make it sustainable, that aren't just, mass producing and, manufacturing very cheaply, poor quality, that's what I was thinking of. And I'm not saying, people that do drop shipping and that is poor quality. It just depends on what the item is. But I tell you now that anyone that has a small business that puts this much effort and work into it, it is worth it for that. They aren't skimping. They are using their time. They're not looking for the quickest and fastest way out. They want to do this because they love what they do and they want you to love what they do as well. And they want to share their creations with you. So, it is a challenge. Having a small handmade business is not for the faint of heart, and it is a lot of work. Very underestimated. And it can be very unrewarding, especially when you are putting in so much time and work. Unfortunately, that is just the reality of it, and you have to just hope that you are lucky enough to find your audience. For me, like I said, the cost of my products having to be so expensive was really upsetting for me because obviously you want sales and you don't want to be unobtainable, but at the same time you do not want to sell yourself short and be at a loss because then you can't continue. I would love to make another video explaining the costs of my journals and how much they cost me to make, all of that information, because it is interesting and how much time actually goes into making one of my handmade junk journals. Just for a bit of context, I think it would definitely help you guys, especially if you want to start your own handmade business and you want to kind of gauge how to price your products. I think I have a lot of knowledge there. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Let me know if that's a video you would want to see, whether you would want to see how to price your handmade products. I would love to make it. I think I'll make it regardless, but let me know if you would value that and actually find value in it. I will also be probably making a video about the pros and cons because I do think Etsy deserves a fair evaluation. This is just my grievances that made me go towards making my own website versus continuing on the marketplace. Will I go back on Etsy at some point? I mean, maybe. If I start mass producing products or manufacturing, I probably will consider it because there are a lot of pros, like I said, and I'll talk about that in another video. But for right now, it's just not sustainable for me. Okay, thank you guys so much. I'm so glad you watched this video all the way to the end. If you would like to look at my other videos, I highly recommend going and taking a look at my channel. I have so much on there. I upload a video every Friday, so definitely go and check that out. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay up to date with all of my latest videos. I have TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Patreon. If you would like to support my small business and my content creation, you can go onto Patreon and pay $1 a month to help me with my video creation, because that is actually a very big bonus and I don't make any money doing that. So if you would like, but it is fun. I love content creation. So anyway, if you would like to support the growth of my channel, please consider going over to there as well. Please check out my website for any purchases, Maddire.com. All of my junk journals are available on there at a very reasonable price for what they are. So definitely go and check that out. I love you guys so much. Bye! Thank you so much for being here with me.